Good evening and welcome. I'm Aisha Sindhu and you are watching India Prime on WION, the only Indian channel that brings you the news with a global perspective. On the show tonight, while regions like Delhi NCR had a lot to celebrate after the CBSE results for grade 12 were declared earlier this week, the state of Bihar, where the board results for 12th were declared on Tuesday, had no cause for cheer. The reason, 2/3 of the students who appeared for the exam failed. In a state that has always been in the news for all the wrong reasons as far as education is concerned, this is a new low. The reason that is generally being given is that this time stringent steps were taken to prevent all kinds of cheating in the exams. And this has resulted in a steep fall in the success percentage in the board of the state. While it would be unfair to attribute success of earlier students to cheating, the correlation between stringent measures and the steep fall in the pass percentage is only too significant not to be noticed. Now, here are some telling numbers. Last year, 11.55 lakh students took the exam, 7.18 lakh or 62.19% cleared it. However, this year, it's an entirely different story. 12.61 lakh students appeared, 4.37 lakh students or 34.65% only passed. Over 8 lakh students failed the examinations. Right, we'd like to remind our viewers also of the case of Ruby Rai last year, who, according to the declared results, topped arts and humanities. When a television channel went to interview the quote-unquote topper, this is what she said in the interview.
पॉलिटिकल साइंस क्या होता है, माने किस तरह का सब्जेक्ट है, इसमें क्या 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 चीज़ पढ़ाया जाता है? पॉलिटिकल साइंस एक नया सब्जेक्ट सुन रहे हैं, क्या चीज़ है?
हाथ की बच्ची है सर।
पॉलिटिकल साइंस या नया सब्जेक्ट हम सुन रहे हैं, क्या चीज़ है?
खाना बनाने के बारे में।
पॉलिटिकल साइंस में खाना बनाने में बताया जाता है। तो होम साइंस क्या होता है? होम साइंस क्या होता है?
खाना बनाने के बारे में दिया हुआ पढ़ाता है।
तो ये होम साइंस, लेकिन पॉलिटिकल साइंस क्या, किस तरह का सब्जेक्ट है? इसमें क्या क्या सब्जेक्ट है, इसमें क्या क्या पढ़ाया गया है, इसमें कौन कौन सा चीज़ है जिसको पढ़ाया गया है पॉलिटिकल साइंस आपके अनुसार से? ये क्या चीज़ होता है, बताइए।
घबराइए नहीं,
बताइए नहीं, क्या चीज़ है, क्या चीज़ है ये पॉलिटिकल साइंस जो है, जिसके बारे में आपने बताया कि मैंने पढ़ी है, क्या चीज़ होता है?
Well, that's not all. Here's another stinging visual that was shot when the 10th standard board examinations were on in Hajipur in Bihar. Take a look. These visuals, remember, went viral not just in India but across the world, raising big question marks on how exactly examinations are conducted, how they're taken when it comes to the state of Bihar. Now, joining us on the discussion from New Delhi tonight is my colleague, WION's correspondent, Raghvendra Rao. Also on the phone line with me is educationist Navar Kishore Chaudhary. He joins us from Patna. Mr. Chaudhary, I'd like to come to you first up. What exactly do you make of this time's board results? Are you satisfied that stringent checking of cheating has reaped some sort of result, or are you dissatisfied with the overall pass percentage, which has dipped significantly from last time around?
See, the issue is a complex one. I am satisfied with the strictness with which evaluation is done. But reports are coming that on account of a strike by teachers, the primary level teachers and middle school teachers were also involved in the evaluation of secondary and post-secondary examination papers. If this is true, then this is wrong. And this has also led to this lower marks, because the teachers were not competent to evaluate the answers. But the real thing is that on account of the last year's toppers scam involving large-scale irregularities in the evaluation, including the evaluation of the topper, the board opted for strictness in the evaluation and a stricter standards of evaluation, plus this non-qualified teachers evaluating. And thirdly, there was a clear nothing large on the evaluators that if something wrong is done and if there is overmarking, they will be punished. But the real issue is not all this which I am talking about, even though these are issues which have to be taken into consideration. The real issue is education in Bihar has collapsed.
And what do you attribute that to, sir? What exactly do you feel has been the reason for the collapse of education in Bihar?
Yeah. There is no teaching. There are no teachers. And the teachers who are para-teachers, contact teachers, they are mostly unqualified. They don't know even ABC of teaching and their subjects. Naturally, if there is a collapse of teaching and if there is a stricter standards of evaluation, then the result would be something which you are having now. So it's not a question of my satisfaction or dissatisfaction. I think this is a very sad situation, and the students are 70% of students have failed in their examinations. They are now protesting, and there is a lathi charge and all that is happening, and this has brought it back into the street. And the Chief Minister and Education Minister needs to answer this situation. They are responsible, and there is an additional element of corruption in the entire system. The educational administration is full of corruption. So this leads to a state policy towards education. Their apathy, their neglect, they're not attaching the right importance to education. So leading to a collapse of education at all levels in Bihar, and the result is for everybody to see. And I'm really a sad person today because of being a teacher. I could see things in the Bihar students have potential to do well in the examination, but if they are not given good education, they are not properly evaluated, then their future is not only in dark, then in fact future is in jeopardy, and then you see what is happening to the students and the entire state.
Right, sir. So you're saying that the students here are being made scapegoats of a much larger malaise. Can I ask you, you're saying that it is the collapse of education, that the politicians have not done enough to bring education or given the kind of importance education needs to it. Can I ask you that do you feel that this has been a successive failure of different governments in the state, or do you attribute this to the current dispensation?
It's a successive failure of government. But in the successive failures of the government. But in the last 3 decades, the Mahagathbandhan, which is ruling the state, has been in power at some time or the other. In fact, Lalu Jalab ruled the state for 15 years, directly and indirectly. And then Nitish Kumar is now ruling for more than 10 years now. So they have to explain. And the situation is really very bad. It has over successive governments and successive administration, and this is really, really bad. It's just not accident. It's a systematic failure. It's the system which has failed, not the students which have failed. We have to ask ourselves questions. The system has to ask itself questions. System is the government and the bureaucracy, the great bureaucracy, and of course all others who are stakeholders in the system and need to do some heart searching and introspection, and some solution has to be found out. Otherwise, there is no future for Bihar. Bihar's future lies in human development, and it lies in education and health sector, particularly education,
right.
Sources. Now, if this is the scenario, then Bihar has no future so far development with justice is concerned.
Sir, do you think that this reliance also on overmarking, on ease of access when it comes to cheating has become very pervasive as far as the student community goes in Bihar as well? We're seeing not just all kinds of students protesting, but toppers themselves are against what has happened. Do you feel that this has become too pervasive and it's going to require some sort of change on a war footing? Will that be possible in the next couple of years, or it's going to be a long-term plan that's going to have to be initiated?
It became too pervasive. It became too pervasive, and therefore some strict action was called for. And I think first step has been taken. And to that extent, the government is moving in the right direction. But as I told you, the real question is providing the right education to students, particularly from the poor sections of society, the backward, the extremely backward, the poor and the minorities. They are these ones who are going to get to education in these government schools and these private schools which are affiliated to examination board. I think the government has to think about it seriously. Otherwise, they told you that there is no future for these poor people, and if there is no future for poor people, there is no future for Bihar.
So where does curricula fit in all of this? Do you think that there's a huge gap between who is making the curricula for students and who exactly ends up studying? Is that a problem too?
Absolutely, there's a huge gap. The curricula and all the decisions are taken within the four walls of the secretariat. The government, the bureaucracy never consult the educationists. And most of the time they are the bosses who call the shots. They call the tunes. And they have hardly any concern to consult those who are the stakeholders. And therefore there is a gap, huge gap, between those who take decisions and those who are the victims of these decisions. So there is a gap.
All right, sir, thanks very much for joining us here on the broadcast. I appreciate you being so candid and putting your point across. You've obviously raised a number of very important, pertinent points as far as this debate goes. I'm going to go across to my colleague Raghvendra Rao, who's also on the discussion with us. Raghvendra, you heard the educationist there from Patna speaking about the dismal scenario that faces Bihar and the system of education there at this point in time. But what do you think comes first? Is there going to have to be a policy change, or is there going to have to be a mentality change, or both things need to happen in tandem for there to be any sort of conclusive result?
Well, Aisha, Mr. Chaudhary did indeed raise some very pertinent points, like he mentioned about, the lack of teachers in Bihar schools. Now, that is a very significant factor why students from that state are, failing to perform well in examinations. That's a key, in fact. But we must not forget the fact that given the recent record, the past track record of the state, cheating in examinations, in school examinations in particular, it had almost become a way of life in Bihar. And the kind of images we have seen in the past few years, it was something which was not just being taken for granted, but it was being thought of as an entitlement. I mean, it was something, it was as, as it was being considered as fine as going to school or enrolling in a school in the first place. So the cheating, which was being, which was almost running like an industry in Bihar, that went on unchecked for the past so many years, and be it an RJD government or be it a JDU government. Now Nitish has been in power for so long, but despite all the reforms he may have initiated in so many sectors, this is one area where clearly even Nitish Kumar has failed to deliver. So when such malpractices become a way of life in a social setup, it gets so deeply ingrained into the psyches of the people that they think that that is the done thing to do, and that
Right.
apparently kept on happening in Bihar for a long time. And the fact that the results have really dipped this time, the correlation is very difficult to miss, because indeed if some stringent measures were indeed to blame for this dip in the performance of the results, surely the fact that some stringent measures were put in place to curb cheating,
Absolutely.
and that is how the results have taken such a nosedive.
Absolutely. In fact, you're pointing out something very important, that is the sort of environment of enabling that has existed in Bihar for a long time. So much so that it's become almost like a given for students to rely on it as a crutch perhaps at exam time. But Raghvendra, also, the professor picked up on a couple of very important points. One of them is about curricula. Do you think also that there is a streamlining of central and state level education that needs to happen? They operate separately at this point of time. Is that perhaps one of the reasons for this to be occurring as well?
Well, I would reckon that's a very valid point to make, because not just Bihar, many other state governments, like every state government has its own respective education board, and if you were to compare their curriculum with that of, say, the CBSE or a board like the ICSE, you would find tremendous, glaring differences in the manner in which the curriculum is structured. So the CBSE, for instance, is one board which is recognized throughout the country, most of the states, despite having their own boards, many schools actually, get affiliated with CBSE rather than getting affiliated to the state board. So there is some gap in the way these courses, these curriculums are framed, and it would actually be a worthwhile idea to just compare and find out, the deficiencies which exist in the state boards, the kind of curricula they frame, and if need be, fill in those gaps, taking the cue from the curricula framed by a board like the CBSE.
Right. Raghvendra, also going off of what Mr. Chaudhary just said to us a little while earlier, he did, of course, bring up the fact that this has opened up a can of worms in some ways as far as Bihar goes. But do you think Bihar is being singled out in many ways? In fact, Raghvendra, stay with me a bit. I'm also joined right now on the phone line by a very important gentleman in this conversation. This is the former Cabinet Secretary, Mr. TSR Subramanian. He's on the phone line with us. Sir, good evening. Thanks for being with us here on WION. Do you feel that Bihar's dismal board results are being too simply looked at as the outcome of more stringent policies as far as exam taking goes?
Well, frankly, I'm not surprised because, firstly, I have not followed the conversation in your program earlier, but my conclusion would be that things are very, very bad in the school level now. The official statistics, the numbers of official statistics are all awfully incorrect. The situation is much worse than, so in most boards, they just lift up the numbers to let people pass and go away with it. We have got examples of class 10 people not knowing class 3 material, class 4 material, and therefore what we saw in Bihar now probably is, stung by earlier criticism, they have now done a correct assessment. Believe me, it is not going to be too different in other states also if the correct numbers come out. It's a very tragic situation. We have not understood the depth of the failure of our education system. Just because the top 10% do very well, they go to Harvard and Stanford, we fool ourselves that things are very good here. And only last month, I think a Pew committee report from Washington has ranked India in schooling dead last in the world.
Right.
I mean, it's a unique tribute to Indians. Unfortunately, our system does not want to wake up. They don't want to get the correct information, correct. This is the tragedy of education sector. In every speech, everywhere, we talk most important education. In reality, nobody cares at all.
Sir, you in fact submitted a report with around 90 suggestions for a new education policy. What among them do you think was a point of no negotiation?
Well, there are 90 important points to look at. Large numbers are interconnected. It deals with teacher, with student, with principal, with school, with politics, with the data collection, curriculum. So all of them are interconnected areas. And, well, the fact is that there is no official recognition. There are no votes in this sector. Put it simply, that the children don't vote, and therefore education is not important in India.
We were speaking with an educationist from Bihar, a former principal, sir, a little while earlier, and he put the blame very squarely on the bureaucracy, on the government. He said very categorically that Bihar's result today is reflective of the fact that there are no teachers in the state. The ones that are there are unqualified altogether, and the onus simply lies on the politicians and successive governments. So if that is what the problem is, how is it that even your program, your 90 suggestions have not gone through? You've categorically put forth for the government what the issues are. Why hasn't any action been taken so far?
See, yours is a good question. Unfortunately, questions abound, answers are limited. The fact is that the teacher from Bihar is absolutely correct. It is politicization. The department is meant for ministers and bureaucrats and directors and for district officials. It is not meant for the students and for the teachers. The teacher preparation, teacher selection, teacher training, and supporting the teacher, all of them, and the system is not inclusive. The quality is very bad. I can go on and on for the next 3-4 hours. But the fact is, it is the government to take action. The private sector cannot only do so much here, and government is just not willing to do anything about it, not even willing to admit that things are bad.
Sir, also, you are with us here on the program. I really want to ask you a few more questions. I understand that you're very busy. I'm sure a lot of people are trying to get in touch with you. But is the clubbing of primary to university level education under one umbrella a big issue as well? I want to take the discussion beyond just Bihar, because I feel Bihar is being singled out, but the malaise is much larger.
Yes. No, I don't think so, because, see, not everyone is actually cut out for higher education. I think class 10 or class 12 should be there, because our vocation stream has to be opened up in a large way. More employments will come all over the world. We got stuck with this 30%, 40% kind of numbers. Not for India, because not maybe 20 years later. So today we need high quality education. The problems are completely different there. High quality, higher education. We need higher quality school education, where the problem is one of quality and inclusiveness. Because of poverty levels, because of the villages, etc., inclusivity, we all think the same laws will apply. So the issues in school are totally different. It is not a continuum, though there has to be a channel from school, for two separate channels, one to vacation stream, and believe me, the 3 or 4 ministries don't even talk to each other. The education ministry, the vocation ministry, the skills ministry, plus things like law, etc., plus the child ministry. I have recommended also that children at age 4 and 5 should get preschool. They're not talking to each other. None of them wants to believe there is a problem in India, and unfortunately it does not have national political focus at the level of the Prime Minister.
Okay, but what about I'm talking about Bihar right now. We're hearing of toppers in the state also protesting against the result. They're saying that they could have scored much more. That has been impacted by these new stringent policies. Does this go to show that cheating in the state of Bihar in specific has almost become like a crutch? And if it has, what is supposed to change first? Does the policy change first? Does the mentality change first? Or both need to take place in tandem?
Look, you need wholesale changes. What has to change now is, we need to realize change is required. Nobody in India in position recognizes this. We still see doctors and doctorates from Stanford, etc. We think everything is hunky-dory. The fact is, it is pura pika hai. The whole thing is full of holes. And therefore, the second thing that we need is, this is the child wants to learn. The teacher, bring the teacher and the child, things will happen. Here it is minister, secretary, this thing, and the politics in the block, which teacher. We have no means of assessing teacher performance. We have no means of assessing student performance. There are fundamental flaws. I cannot explain in a short conversation. The real unless we are 70 years, we think can change in 10 to 15 years. It won't happen in 2 years' time. There is no realization that things have to change, and that's the tragedy of India.
So where does this fall then in Prime Minister Modi's Development for All agenda?
I have been very critical of this, because I feel Modi has given hope to India. What we have not had for 70 years, he has given hope today. Unfortunately, the key in a democracy, it is education, it is health, electoral reform, administrative reform, and the tiny industries. These are four sectors which are the most important, which are outside of the radar.
So you've obviously helped us sort of bring this entire conversation full circle. Quite categorically, it seemed like everyone is focusing just on one aspect, one state. But one last question, sir, is in your case, in your opinion, there a large gap also between who is studying in this country and who is creating the curricula for the students? Has the conversation reached a point where there also has to be a demand on a re-understanding of what curricula in school is supposed to be?
You raised a very basic question. There are 30, 40 basic questions. This is one of them. We have, I think, since the Kothari time, for the last 40 years, 30 years, we have been talking of curriculum change. We are talking of rote education. We got pedagogy. Zero attention has been given to that in the last 40 years. I'm saying it with a lot of grief and a lot of very heavy heart, that these are fundamentally, absolutely fundamental. So when you go abroad and see how something is taught there and to the children there, how they here they believe in rote education. So complete revamp of the curriculum and also pedagogy, these are essential, neither has been attempted here.
All right, sir. Appreciate you breaking it all down for us and joining us here on the discussion. You've brought up so many relevant points. Each one of them demands perhaps a greater discussion. Maybe TV is not the best place for this to happen, but appreciate all of our guests today for joining us, Mr. Chaudhary, Mr. Subramanian, and of course, my colleague Raghvendra Rao. Raghvendra, I'm sorry, we've run out of time. I would have loved to take a couple more to you, but we leave it there for now. This is where I wrap up India Prime. But remember, we'll be back after this extremely short break for more news and updates from around the world. Do stay tuned to WION. We'll see you in a bit.